Hello, beautiful ladies. Welcome back to Wamen Hour. Tonight I'm joined by a very beautiful lady, Juniper, a randomer from Twitter. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I found you mainly because of your paintings on Twitter, which I think are amazing. And I was really interested to see the kind of studies you've been doing, the self-education you've been going through to improve yourself as an artist. And I wanted to just have you on tonight to talk a little bit about the process of producing paintings, art, I don't know what you call it, or and to educate yourself in that process. So however you want to approach the discussion, what do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, so I am entirely self-educated art-wise, aside from, some basic rudimentary art education in like high school, the same kind of stuff that most people get in compulsory education. You get to play a little bit with clay, you get to play a little bit with watercolor. Your teacher gives you some assignments to copy some photographs. So nothing special as far as that goes. But I've always really enjoyed the arts. It's something that's been one of the longest lasting pleasures of my life. And it's something that I keep returning to time and time again in all walks of my life. So I'm a wife and mother to five very young children. I have five under seven. And
Wow.
I actually, yeah, I actually dropped painting and drawing during college so that I could kind of focus on reinventing myself. But whenever I was pregnant with my first son, is really when I returned to it. And instead of it being something that I did kind of casually, just as something to kind of fill my time, it became something I was really focused on and passionate about. Um, so, so lately, you can see here, I've been doing kind of a crash course on anatomy because I've been doing a lot of more figurative drawings and paintings lately. And because I am self-taught, there's a lot of fundamental information that I've missed by kind of my haphazard way of getting an education. So these are
But
assignments. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying, even to get to this level, in order to really appreciate this kind of course, you'd need to have a pretty high baseline of just technique to begin with, I'm guessing, to be able to fully get the benefit of a course like this, where you're drawing all the muscles and the skin and the shadows, and just having the confidence to draw those lines where you want them to be. You must have, or just lots of practice, or what have you been
Yeah.
doing?
So a lot of it is just getting in the hours, honestly. So and this is not you because I can tell by the stuff that you've done that this is not something that you struggle with, but for people who've never, since they were children, who have never wanted to draw and might want to draw now, there's kind of a natural progression in the way that children approach representational drawing, where the natural inclination of children is actually to use like hieroglyphics, basically. And they come up with their own visual language with which they depict the world. So, like, you'll see a kid draw a picture of a house, and a iconographic house in a children's mind is a rectangle with a door and a square window with lines in it for panes and a triangle roof and a chimney with some smoke on it. And like, even if they've never even seen a house with a chimney, that's what house looks like when a little kid will draw it. And so that's like the icon of a house. When you first start picking up a pencil, you are trying to do something else with that. whenever you're drawing. So what you're trying to do is, instead of drawing the idea of like an eye or a house, you're trying to transfer the lines that you see in the world around you, like the outlines, the contours, the big shapes. You're trying to translate that from the three-dimensional real world onto a flat plane. And so once you can do that, and it's like it's a mental shift. And there's actually a book that's really good at teaching you how to do that if you've never done it before. It's this book, and it's targeted toward adults. It's drawing on the right side of the brain, and it'll teach you how to go from uh, thinking iconographically to thinking representationally, the way that an artist would. And I think that is, if you're really interested in learning and you haven't figured that out before, that's a really good place to start. Um,
Yeah, I was going to say I know exactly what you mean. I had this struggle when drawing shadows, where there's kind of this you've got this idea in your brain of what parts should be in a shadow and what shouldn't. Like you're trying to figure out from laws of physics which parts should
right.
be in shadow, when really, while doing life drawing classes, I've done this thing. I don't know if anyone ever told me to do this, or if this is my own innovation, where I just blur my eyes so I can't see anything but light and shadow, and I just put I put shadows in the places that look the darkest,
That is
and
like
just
a
sort of build it up from
spot
there.
on way to do it. And that is I will catch myself doing that. And it's a really great tool when you're trying to come up with compositions or to see color or whatever, because when you're going back and forth between thinking representationally the way that like an artist would, or thinking like logically, like shape rotatory, um you can kind of trip yourself up. And so there's all kinds of tricks in that book. There's a lot of tricks like that, like blurring your eyes, turning a page upside down, um cropping out certain parts of an image so that you're like less focused on the parts of your brain that make sense of what you're seeing, and help you to translate just to the page. So when you first start out drawing, it's important to learn how to do that, to like switch the way that you're thinking. So I would say that if you're going to learn how to draw, that's the first step. The next step would be to take a good introductory drawing course. Drawing is the foundation of any of the two-dimensional arts. So if you're going to be a great painter, you should probably at least be okay at drawing. I'm certainly not the best draftsman out there. I treat it more as a tool for getting me to a painting that I like. But there's a lot of people who that's their primary focus, and they can create some really beautiful um, drawings that are as good, if not better, than any painting. And a lot of the old masters actually are more interesting in their drawings, I think, than in their paintings, because you can see a lot of the way that they construct things and a lot of the way that they simplify. So I think that's interesting. There's a ton of those drawing courses out there. You just pick one that you like and that works for you.
Yeah,
But you have
I
to do
wanted
it.
what I wanted to talk to you about is something that I heard from a few professional artists who told me that trying to get an education in the arts, like in artistic technique, is really difficult because there's so much out there that's just really bad. Like
Oh, it's
the
terrible.
the modern style of art, the modern sort of style of education is to focus on the feeling and the themes, and just trying to get like trying to train that part of you that's being creative rather than actually training the technique. Is that what you've heard? Is that what you found?
Oh yeah, 100%. So there's a reason I didn't go to art school. Well, there's two reasons. One was that it was the recession, and I didn't want to be poor in the middle of the recession. And then part of it was also that I haven't seen that, especially like university-based fine arts education. I think it prepares you to be an a art teacher in a school. I'm not convinced that it actually makes you a good artist. Um, steel manning it a little bit. I think it focuses a lot on like art history and art appreciation, and there's value in that. I think that's not necessarily what you're interested in if you're interested in the fine arts. However, there are really great programs online, and there are some really fantastic art schools if you know what to look for. Online, which the course that I've been doing, Ray's Anatomy, which is fantastic if you have a really hard time understanding constructive anatomy without understanding what's actually happening in the body, which was my problem. That's
So
through New Masters Academy.
are you taking that online, or is that in going in person somewhere?
Oh, that's online. So New Masters Academy, it's an online art school. It's focused more on serious fine arts education. And so I'm doing the Ray's Anatomy course. There's also other fundamentals of drawing courses that are, I think, well worth doing on there. Their main competitor is probably Proco, and I think his first name's Sam Prokopenko. He has a lot of YouTube videos as well on like basic constructive anatomy, and he does interviews with other artists. But Proco, the website, has a ton of courses that you can take and get a pretty decent arts education. And if you're interested in things like animation or character design, things like that, there's a lot of that on the Proco website. I haven't done it because that's not really my specialty, but from what I've seen, it's about the same level of quality that you're going to get at most universities. I will say, if you can, and if you're really interested in getting a very thorough, kind of old-fashioned, but in a good way, arts education, there's something called an atelier, and it is there are a couple of really good ones in the United States. The Grand Central Atelier in New York produces phenomenal artists in a classical realist style, and that's a kind of art that is very technically demanding. So if that's something you're interested in, you can probably teach it to yourself, but an
I'm just
actual art school might be helpful.
I'm kind of shocked to hear that there actually are really good artists coming out of any schools anywhere in the world at the moment.
So,
uh,
but
I'm
it's specifically like a very small number of these schools. And then I'm actually friends with someone who is in the who teaches at the Swedish Academy of Realist Art, which is another atelier, and her stuff is phenomenal. And they also produce really great artists. But yeah, you have to be very discerning, and I'm not convinced that unless you have aspirations to join the art industry and are using it for those kind of connections, I'm not really sure that it really does that much for you. So I think for most people, your best chance at getting an arts education is probably to do things online or to read a lot of books. You're muted.
I was just saying, practicing a lot. I think the hard part is when you don't know how to improve and you need that instructor's eye. Like you need someone with experience who knows how to, knows what you need. Like they're looking at what you've been looking at something for 60 hours and you can't see it for what it is anymore. So you need that trained eye to give you that really specific advice instead of just saying like, oh, his arm looks like it's in the wrong place, or
Right. Thanks
make
for
the
that. Very
shadows
helpful.
darker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely where I've been struggling. And you also kind of need um guidance, like a course of study, and that's definitely the downside to trying to do it on your own. So like I've been doing a lot of painting, but then it wasn't until I hit this one painting that I'm trying to do now that I found out that my knowledge of anatomy is so severely lacking. So now I'm having to go backward and kind of learn from scratch a lot of things that would have been helpful to know, 3 years ago. But nobody told me I needed to do such and such and such order. to like maximize my effort. But the struggle's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't
Yeah.
know how much you do you do it for the love of it, or do you have an ambition that you're working towards, or is it both?
It's kind of more of a compulsion.
Yeah,
So
I think that's true of anyone who produces anything.
yeah,
As a lifetime, yeah, sort of, and
yeah,
as a lifetime commitment, you have to love even the hard parts. Like, you have to feel compelled to
yeah.
do it, or you just won't do it.
It's kind of like it's like being in a really rocky relationship where you passionately love it one day and then just like wonder why you're still doing this the next. But if you ever tried to put it down and just like go about your life, you would be very sad and something important to you would be missing. Most days I enjoy it and I love it, and it's one aside from faith and family, it's one of the greatest joys of my life. But that doesn't mean it's not without its frustrations for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm still reeling from what you said at the start of the stream about your family and just managing to fit this level of commitment into that life seems amazing to me. Yeah, this is the kind of you produce the kind of quality of stuff that I would expect someone who devoted their entire life to art to produce. To be honest,
it's funny. So I didn't start painting in earnest again until my firstborn son. And then now I'm probably producing more in the last year and a half than I did in the years of my adult life without children and with like ample free Saturdays where I just wasn't doing anything. I don't even know what I was doing with all that time. But you can fit in a lot in about 2 hours a night.
yeah.
And really once you hit that, you're kind of done anyway. So it's
I
time
know
to
it's
do something else.
I actually picked up illustration again because of my children, because it was one of the few things I could do while holding a baby or while feeding a
Yeah,
baby. Like, you just kind of got your elbows occupied, and then you kind of got your
right.
wrists there too. I got my husband was kind enough to get me this phone that I could doodle on with a pen, and although
Oh
it's
yeah.
very unaesthetic, like, I had to train myself again to use this slidey plastic pen on a screen, like a glass screen. But like,
Yeah.
once I got trained on it, I could produce things that I was pretty happy with, and that I could put online and get better at. And actually, it was a really nice sort of change of pace. Without having to put down the baby, I could still work on stuff.
Yeah, you can stick a baby in a carrier and like oil paint with baby on your back as long as they're asleep. Like it works.
Yeah, definitely.
And you'll also find, I don't know how old your children are, but we spend a
Younger than
lot of
yours, I
time at
think.
the park. So I spend a lot of time at the park available in case of flood, but not necessarily intellectually engaged with very much. And that's a perfect time to just get some sketching in and just make time for ideas and a lot of the preliminary stuff that I don't necessarily need to do at home in front of the easel. So that works really, really well.
Yeah, people
Um,
say that you've got to draw properly. You've got to draw with your whole arm, which I've I've never learned to do, to be honest. Like, one day when I don't have any babies left, I'm going to learn to draw with my whole arm. But right
the
now, I
whole
don't have
arm.
that kind of mobility.
I will admit that I am not the best person at doing that. My little sketchbook's just a little passport sized thing, so my whole
Wow.
arm would take it right off the page.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say that if you do that, I've been doing it more with my painting than my drawing, and I will say that it gives you some really beautiful lines. They're
Yeah.
very aesthetic. They're gorgeous. But uh, if you haven't been doing it, and if you haven't been professionally trained to do that with a teacher standing over your shoulder, hitting you in the head every time you use your fingers, I don't think it comes very naturally.
Can I ask you about anime? Because I've seen before. Not that this was something you did, but I saw Marek from Yu-Gi-Oh! In your, and I just wondered, like, that when I went to university, I was flatmates with an illustrator. Yeah, someone studying illustration, and she said that everyone in her course liked anime, and their portfolio is just full of that anime, manga, inspiration stuff. Is that something you found?
So okay. So when I was in high school, and art school was a very faint possibility on the horizon. The reigning wisdom was that you never put anime in your portfolio because everybody knows that you like anime. And the reason that you're going to art school is because you love anime. But you can't admit that you like anime because that's not like fine art, artistic enough. And also, the art schools in America specifically really like the um, Steven Universe style of Tumblr.
CalArts. Yeah.
It's CalArts style. Um, I love anime. I don't watch very much of it now because I think I've kind of, and I don't mean this to say that if you watch anime that you're immature or anything like that. I don't. My husband loves anime. Um, a lot of the female targeted anime tends to be toward high school girls, and I can't take the relationship difficulties seriously anymore.
Yeah.
I just can't suspend my disbelief long enough.
I know exactly what you mean, and I've
Yeah.
kind of grown out of it in the exact same way. Where when I was a teenage girl, it was the most amazing thing I'd ever
I was
seen.
so just, oh, I understand. Sebastian's my husbando, and I'm going to love him forever. And now I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Black
I
Butler was
can't.
that? Oh, yeah,
Black Butler, you know, it was
yeah.
great.
But
But
Studio Ghibli still holds up, right? You've got to be
it
with me
does.
on that. Yeah,
My
I
kids were
love that.
watching Totoro in the car. So,
I love watching those films more now than I used to. I just it's that the childhood innocence and the epic stories, the swelling music. I just it never gets old for me. And
they're
even like
beautiful.
now watching it through the eyes of my children, I like it even more. Never get old
Yeah.
of it.
Well, and especially Totoro, I love how they model the father in that anime because you don't see, especially in Western animation, a whole lot of present fathers that have a very masculine way of handling their children, but are also kind and loving. And it's why people like Bluey too. It's just it's so well modeled.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Um,
but yeah, I love anime.
yeah, no, I think you've got a good style, and the anime doesn't show up in your drawings, which I think is always a good. That's like a sign of like anime properly digested, and you've worked it out
I
of your
have been
system.
struggling to get away from it, but it comes up occasionally if I'm not focusing on it. And I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. I will say, if you are interested in drawing, for your audience, if you're interested in drawing anime specifically, a very good, I will make the case that you should probably learn how to draw realistically and
Yes,
learn how to draw the figure first before you start learning how to draw anime figures
or any
because
like if you want to draw Disney
yeah,
style or SpongeBob SquarePants, like I guarantee all of
anything
those cartoonists know how to draw properly. You know,
better than
even
I
if they're the
definitely better than
Simpsons
I do.
artists, you know, like
Oh
they
yeah,
it doesn't matter what you're drawing. If you're drawing a person, then you need to understand anatomy. Like you need to understand like the limits of how far an elbow can go. And then once you know the
right,
rules, you can break them.
exactly. And then the other thing is that popular styles change so quickly. So like what the Yu-Gi-Oh picture you saw earlier, what was popular when I was a kid and obsessed is definitely not what would get you a job now. We're not doing the cell shading anymore. We're not doing the ridiculous hair and the super pointy chin and the nose that could cut glass, the super long limbs. All of
Yeah, I was gonna
those
say
things
this guy's
change.
proportions. He's like, you know, you're supposed to do a person is a realistic person is like 7 heads tall. Is that what you tell
Mhm.
me? This is like
So
11 heads
the
tall.
heroic figure that you'll learn in most anatomy books is actually 8, just because it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, the average person's like 7, 7.5 heads. This
I
guy
think
is like what, 9?
I
I don't
think he's
know.
like 15. Like, seriously, like look
He's
how he
huge.
just keeps going.
Yeah, and his limbs, I don't even
His head is
know
so
where his
small.
feet are. Yeah, and
I'm not
his
including his hair in the head count, by the way.
yeah. Then he'd be like 4. Um But
Yeah, this
yeah,
is
it
ridiculous.
requires a lot of suspension of disbelief. And that works great if it's within the context of the anime and, all the characters look like that. But if you want to be able to do other things, I suggest that you practice drawing either from life or from photos is probably the next best thing. Honestly, the way that people historically have learned art, and it's probably even better than learning from photos, is to actually copy um, drawings and paintings that you like,
Yeah, I
especially
do
if
that.
you know that the artist was well trained and but generally well respected. So,
Have you ever
but
studied
yeah, like
Andrew? Have you ever studied Andrew Loomis?
I have. I actually have his book right next to my desk because he is, I think, the easiest to decipher as far as constructive anatomy goes.
I really like how scientific he is. Like, you just take
Yeah.
out all of the artsy stuff and like express yourself. It's just literally like this is how big a nose is.
Well, and what I like about him is that he's not looking at it as a creative person might, or like what we think of a creative person. He's thinking of it as a craftsman, and he's giving you very practical, real advice, and he's not really inflating your ego as this kind of caricature of an artist. And he's he's telling you how to get good work successfully. And I like that he has a craftsman's mindset about it. There's definitely a place for vision, and you need to have vision to be a really great artist, but you also have to kind of
You need
do the work.
technique.
Yeah, you have to do the work to get the technique as well.
This is the Andrew Loomis I have, and something it's like
That's what I
written in
have as
the.
well.
I think it's written in the 40s. So he's got this.
Um,
He's got figure drawing, and he's also got The Head and Hands is another book, and then he's got one called Fun with a Pencil.
yeah, so I have Head and Hands and I have the figure drawing for all it's worth. It was copyright 1943,
Something
which is
that
fantastic.
something that tickles me about figure drawing for all it's worth is that all of the women are wearing high heels. Like, not really high, like they've got like a 2-inch heel on them. Like, this is the
Yeah.
standard model of a woman. She's wearing a heel. It's like she's wearing high heels. Even the naked
She's
ones have got a heel on.
completely naked except for, I guess she felt like wearing heels that day.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, you're
Yeah.
never going to need to draw a barefoot woman. You need to learn how to
No, why
draw
would
a
you need
woman
to?
in a shoe.
I think there's like one. And even then she's like creeping forward on the balls of her feet. So she's practically wearing high heels.
something
But
that
yeah,
these something this book really taught me is to get out of that anime mindset where I would always draw women in the sort of anime style for all of my teen years, where like they have this
mm,
tiny waist, narrow shoulders, thin limbs, and picking up this book again, it was a present from my husband, who's been so encouraging with my artistic, education. He gets me all this stuff that I would never buy for myself. But this book makes female bodies look really beautiful without needing to be like that supermodel, skinny, skeletal look. Like, he just makes normal, athletic looking women. I mean, they're models. They are models, but they're not like
yeah,
super. They're not like
they have
they're
like
not swimsuit
they
models
have
or anything.
right. Well, and they have like appropriate places where fat exists on the female body. Like you have abdominal fat to protect your inner organs, and it's important to draw that, or they look like little anime girls. Um, Same with the way that like the underarms look, or because women aren't as not exaggerated, but obviously muscular. But there's an underlying musculature there that I think is almost more difficult to depict in women because it's so subtle. I
You know,
think,
when I
frankly,
was a kid, I used to think that like skinny people literally didn't have muscles because muscles was the word that kids used to mean like GI Joe, like having
yeah,
really
like
big like
brawny.
muscles. I thought that people who weren't strong literally didn't have any muscle at all. That is
Yeah,
kind of
and
how people are drawn as well, like in the anime
it
style
is.
or like cartoons.
And it's, I mean, I think it's easier to probably animate that. And if the character of the person that you're drawing in a cartoon style isn't supposed to um, be brawny as like a character trait, I can see why you would do it. But if you want to be able to draw realistically and then exaggerate one way or the other, it is actually important to be able to draw women as they are. I
Yeah,
think men are more fun to draw, but
it
that's
took me a long
because
time to learn to draw men because I was so obsessed with drawing women for some reason.
well, I
I
think
think,
it's so I have a hard time drawing men. I'm learning how to do it. I think because we're women, what you see in the mirror is generally what you're more familiar with. But men are so fun because that you can put all kinds of bulges everywhere. You can put,
I love the
well,
way
and
that
they're
the way that men are drawn in like comic books, like DC,
I love it.
Superman, Batman. Like they've got these like side on, their chests are like
Oh
enormous.
yeah,
Like they're they say like a barrel chested man, but these
it's
are like
great.
so
It's
ridiculous.
phenomenal. Well, and it's not even just a Marvel thing. If you look back at Michelangelo, he would kind of just tack on additional bulges and bumps and lumps of muscle where they don't normally exist in nature or where they aren't so exaggerated just because the heroic figure is so interesting visually.
Yeah, and
So that's definitely not new.
Michelangelo's David. Someone ruined it for me by pointing out how huge the hands and the head are on that
Yeah,
statue. But that is kind of the heroic figure, isn't it? It's a bit taller than the average man. It's a bit like more exaggerated
just
because
more.
the head and the hands are so expressive. That's why Andrew Loomis has a book just about head and hands. That to express emotion or intent or attitude, the head and the hands do most of the talking. Like where are your head? Like what is the expression in your face? What is the angle of your neck? Where are you putting your hands? Tells a whole story in a picture, and it's so important to get those right. I think.
Well, and we're
But
so wired to find faces and hands in even inanimate objects. Like two
yeah,
little dots and a swoop read as a face to us because we are so focused on um, communicating and understanding communications in that way. So
yeah.
it's essential, and they're so interesting.
And I think that's why cartoonists like the nose doesn't really express emotion. So you've seen a lot of cartoons either have no nose at all or they have a really tiny nose, but the
Yeah.
eyes will be enormous because the eyes express a lot of emotion, and also the mouth might be it could be smaller, it could be big, but that's where a lot of the emotion is coming from. And yeah, in the statue, having the large hands, of course, is drawing attention to that as a mode of expression.
And contrary to that would be like a very delicate feminine like Disney princess hands are very simplified and very elongated and very delicate, even though a man's hand and a woman's hand aren't actually as different looking in the real world. But it says a lot about that kind of character.
Yeah, to make characters, it sounds weird talking about this in terms of Disney characters, but to make characters sexually appealing, or even like I don't mean that like a pornographic way. I mean to make a Disney princess look ultimately feminine, or to make a Disney prince or a Marvel superhero look extremely masculine. You highlight those things that are different between men and women and make them even more different. You make those differences even bigger, so you make the woman's waist even narrower, you make her shoulders even narrower, you make her hands even more delicate, and you do the absolute opposite to the male characters to maximize that. It's just a character design thing. Like you're trying to highlight that part of them so they don't all end up looking pretty much androgynous.
Right. And then even if you're drawing in a more realistic style, you'll do the same, just less in less of an exaggerated way. But one of the interesting things about drawing representationally is that you're always making decisions about um, what to include, what to leave out, how to treat the complexity that you see in front of you, and you can make decisions to highlight or to diminish certain traits to help the composition or to indicate something about the character. So you do a lot of that character design stuff, even if all you're doing, well, not all you're doing, but even if what you're doing is portraiture or something like that. You saw those two paintings of Napoleon, the one of him on the horse triumphantly riding into battle versus the one of Napoleon looking very defeated, leaning back on his chair with his pot belly, looking very done. Same man, but what you're trying to say about that man um, is very different. Right. So
Yeah.
this is a very ideal, youthful, strong depiction of Napoleon. Did this
Oh yeah.
event ever happen? Probably not, but that's a great way to depict
It
him. And
is
I
cool
would
though,
love a
isn't it?
painting of myself. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's as true about who he was and what he did as anything else
Yeah, that,
versus
it
this
never.
one.
He looks so. His head looks so big in this painting. Like he looks like such a tiny person. Like so there's this trope about this meme about Napoleon being short, but apparently he wasn't really that short compared to people of his time. But this makes him look tiny.
Well, yeah, and it's a very unflattering pose. The artist didn't have to depict him bald, but that's a decision. And,
Yeah.
so in portraiture, just like anything else, you're making decisions.
I to divert the conversation slightly, I'll leave Napoleon up because it demonstrates my point. We had a super chat about character design in the year of our Lord 2023 was the exact wording of the question, but I think the question is sort of leaning at something that we see a lot, which is just the uglification of everything. I don't know if it's really true, but what I said earlier about how I found it hard to believe there were good artists coming out of artistic institutions because it seems like art these days there doesn't seem to be artists who are capable of making anything beautiful, so they just make everything ugly and they glorify that ugliness as like an intentional choice when I don't know if they're just incapable, like they literally don't have the technique to make something look beautiful, so they just like it's just cope. They just make it bad on purpose because they don't know how to make it look good, or whether they really do have some kind of satanic desire to make everything ugly.
It's probably both, honestly. I'm not sure that the people who are entering into art institutions and then coming out of those art institutions almost worse off than they were coming out of high school. Because if you've ever watched those, I used to be addicted to those flip through videos of the very polished sketchbooks that people would use for their admissions process to Cal Arts. Like they were coming up with some beautiful work. We're straight out of high school, blew anything I could do out of the water. Um, but you would see what they would produce on the other end of their education. And it's like they stopped caring about making good things or could make good things, but weren't in an environment of people that cared about promoting really beautiful things. Like beauty was fifth or sixth tier, and political agenda or um like mostly political agenda or just like in group sentiment
I
were,
think it's
number one and number two.
I think there's a sentiment of equality where true we're talking about exaggerating beautiful
Mm-hmm.
traits or manly traits or feminine traits in a way that doesn't even represent reality anymore, but I think that there's an aspirational element of that. If you look at stained glass windows or ancient statues, they're not strictly realistic, but they are undeniably beautiful and aspirational. They represent beautiful things. And even even Napoleon, the even in this sort of ugly squat Napoleon, there's a lot of really beautiful technique here. The drapes and the little bits of mud on his shoe, the way that the clothes are sketched is all very beautiful and obviously evident of brilliant technique, even if what they're depicting is kind of ugly. I
Right.
think
And I think even what they're trying to depict here is not necessarily, oh, ha ha ha, look at how bad Napoleon looks in this picture. What a fatty. I think what they're trying to depict here is that he's been tried through war and a lot of hardship in his life, and he's world weary and and he's a great man who has struggled with fortune, is what they're trying to depict here. Not, it's not like a belittling, which I think a lot of art now is either doesn't take itself seriously enough to have anything to say, or it's just trying to have a joke at somebody else's expense in just a very nasty way. It's
I think
not
it's more pathetic than nasty. I think that what I was trying to get at, I didn't articulate it well, but I was trying to talk, that to make something look beautiful, to make a person look beautiful, is to make everyone who can't live up to that because they didn't win the genetic lottery, or, for instance,
right.
or they're just an ordinary person who doesn't have the budget for a beautiful wardrobe. That everyone lesser than that might start to feel bad, which is something that no one really cared about. We just wanted to celebrate beauty and to create beautiful things. But now I think to create something beautiful is to make everyone else feel bad about themselves, and so people are a bit embarrassed about doing that almost.
Oh, definitely. I think you see this a lot in marketing too. Kind of the shift away from aspirational beauty or marketing that's, for instance, underwear models, because that's a hot button issue
We talked
in,
about it last week, yeah.
yeah, in the present discourse, like underwear models who are obviously airbrushed and obviously not attainable for like 99% of women. But the reason that you have that kind of marketing is that you're trying to say, like, look at what kind of woman you could be if you buy my product. So it's supposed to be an aspirational thing. And you see a lot of this if you're watching like 1950s marketing or even before that. It's not supposed to be achievable. It's supposed to be aspirational. And when you start worrying so much about making everything achievable, you lose that sense of um, wanting something better. And what's achievable gets lower and lower and lower because we have to include more and more people. And also, you've been striving less. So now what you're capable of achieving is even less than it was when we had, beautiful representations. Now it's less than mediocre. So that, I think that's definitely true. And I think there's like a level of um, just like self-hatred that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, definitely. To test this hypothesis, I think it's a good time to move on to our super chat for the last couple of minutes. I've already kept you for almost an hour. It's hard to believe, but I did want to talk about character design as the as our super chatter DRT, our loyal patron, asked us to. And we're going to test this theory to see if are things getting uglier. Okay, we're just going to look at some of the movies that are coming out this year, this exact year.
Oh boy.
I haven't. These
Oh
are the
no.
50 most anticipated. That is biggest budget.
Oh
All your
no.
stars of celebrities, Hollywood movies. These haven't been handpicked, but I just wanted to share them and see if we can prove our own hypotheses
Okay,
here.
here we go. Let's do it.
Now, here we go. Okay, so there's a few here that obviously are more important than others. We're going to watch all of them. I guess maybe when talking about character design, I wonder if it would be sensible to stick to more fantastical movies that include, that have costumes and even makeup and hair that is somehow extraordinary. Kind of like Ant-Man and the Wasp
It can
would be
be
a good
more
example.
fun. Yeah.
I'm going to mute these so we don't get because we're not really listening to this. We don't care about what happens in the film. I just want to see. I just want to see what the characters
Sing
look like.
Ant-Man.
Yeah, I mean, so Ant-Man for a start. Like Paul Rudd is not. He's not Henry Cavill, is he? He's an everyman. He's not a. He's not a Superman.
Right. And then let's see.
Trying to
Oh
find a good
gosh.
still frame for you.
I hate the blue grunge. I hate blue grunge. I hate it so much.
I'm using a little preview now. Of course, they always tease everything, so it's probably the most action-packed stuff is at the end. Here we go. We've got the shot of two. We've got Ant-Man and we've got the Wasp. The Wasp is played by someone middle-aged. Is that fair to say? She looks like she's older than 40.
She's older than me by at least 10 years. And I'm in my
Yeah.
30s. With a not very feminine hairdo. Um,
She looks. It's kind. I wouldn't say it's a Karen hairdo, but it's very much a kind of soccer. What the Americans call soccer mums. Soccer
it is, it's
moms.
very soccer mom, and it's meant, I think, to make her into a low maintenance woman, which is interesting because hair like that is actually much higher maintenance than just putting it up.
Yeah, the old ponytail I've got.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I have on.
I know what you mean. It's kind of like the tomboy, not like other girls' aesthetic. She has got
Yeah,
boobies on her armor, which is something that
she does. That's rare now.
is it. I don't. Well, I guess we'll see. But I think, yeah. I mean, she's definitely armored. It's not a. She's not exposing skin in the way that like an
Yes.
old D&D manual would have.
Yeah. So were
So
you
that's
on
something.
Tumblr when all of that was we weren't supposed to depict women in bikini armor anymore? I remember being on Tumblr in probably 2009.
I think I know the exact meme that you're thinking of.
Yes.
And there was even like jokes about like I remember seeing drawings of men in ridiculously skimpy outfits to kind of highlight how
To,
ridiculous it was.
yeah. But now I feel like that wouldn't even be off limits. I feel like men in ridiculously skimpy outfits would be.
Well, you say that. I think D&D. I think the D&D movie is in here, and we can see.
Is it?
It's a very. I've heard. I haven't seen it. I've heard that the Dungeons and Dragons movie from this year is very self-aware, and all of the outfits and the locations and items are all D&D accurate. Let's have a look. I just did a Control F and it did nothing. What am I doing wrong here? Where is it? It says there's one result. Now I can't find it. What am I? Where am I going wrong? I think you press Control F. Let's just do Barbie while I before
Oh, there
I
we go,
insane.
Barbie.
So Barbie, I think, is a pretty obvious one. Like, why did we need a Barbie movie? I don't know. I don't know if it's like a post-feminist thing or it's a. I'm not sure what, but yeah. I mean, it looks like I'm sure it's satirizing Barbie in some shape or form. I don't understand what the actual
Which
film is about.
I remember being a kid and Barbie reinventing herself into feminist working woman icon. I don't think this image of Barbie has been the image of Barbie since at least the 70s, maybe.
I know what you mean. You know,
So it's interesting to be satirizing a vision of her that nobody's had in 40 years,
yeah, that's basically
50
part of the
years.
course, isn't it? The
Yeah.
the sort of post subverting your expectations for things that like nobody wanted. But I think they've actually to speak to our uglification regime. I think they've tried to make. And they've cast a hot actress and a hot actor to play Barbie and Ken, and they've put her in flattering clothes. I
Yeah.
think that they've
Approve.
it maybe it's satire, maybe it's not, but at least they've made an effort to make these people look hot,
Good.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about
Ooh,
Ryan
what
Gosling
was
before,
that?
but it's almost enough to make me want to watch it. To be honest,
I might. I will admit that I don't watch a lot of film because I can't sit still. So
well, that explains the artistic hobbies
yes, so
and the
it's a
compulsive nature of it.
combination of standing up to paint and listening to audiobooks all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
But you explain how you ended up watching me on YouTube, I guess.
Yes.
We've got
Exactly how.
okay, let's go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay,
I
here we
know,
go.
I know what we're looking for or expecting. Yeah.
Reminds me of Sly Cooper a little bit.
What is that?
Do you remember that game Sly Cooper? It had
Sorry, I
kind of like
don't.
this pseudo comic book, but 3D style to it. Oh, it's an old game. It was
Okay.
actually pretty stylish, but this doesn't look too bad.
I think this is April O'Neil, which is something that I remember seeing some controversy about at the time that this trailer
I
came
mean,
out.
it's what, yet another white woman
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much
turned.
into ethnicity, but she does not look as hot
Yeah,
as she did in that 80s cartoon that I that I
that's
remember
true.
seeing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I don't know her character if she was supposed to be like very down to earth. Like, is that in keeping with her character, or is
She
she
was kind of a
supposed to be
tomboy,
kind of
wasn't
a
she?
bombshell? Um,
But the turtles, I'm not expecting the turtles to look hot, obviously. But
right. I
I
mean, they're supposed to be sewer denizens.
yeah,
Yeah. So this looks more. Why are her hands so small? Um,
good question. Yeah, she's kind of squat in general. This is really like they really have seemed to make her like ugly on purpose. Like
right.
she's
So
squat.
she's got
She's
like
got
a potato body, but very thin
yeah.
legs. Like she's not. You can make plump looking characters that are still visually appealing, but you generally wouldn't do like very round body tapering into small feet and hands
She's
on
kind of looks
purpose.
dirty as well. Like she looks like she's like
Yeah,
these clothes aren't really clean or or like properly
right.
maintained.
She's very grungy.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
Yeah.
not like she's not quite goth enough to make it look like an intentional choice. Like it looks like she has to dress like this.
Yes, yes. It looks kind of accidental, which is not what you want.
Yeah. You know, I actually kind of
The
like the
turtles
art
are
style of
nice.
this. I
Yeah,
like
the
how
turtles are good.
they've tried to make the turtles all look different, which is something that they didn't bother to do in a lot of the adaptations of this, where they were like very subtle, but the face shapes of all four of these characters is different.
Right, and that's really good character design because it's going to tell you something about the kind of like the personalities
Yeah,
of each of
yeah.
them.
I don't want to spend too long on any of these, but
I like that. I think animation is a lot more interesting as far as character design goes, just because you can be a lot more extreme with it.
I wanted to go with Dune, which is another fantastical kind
Oh,
of medium.
okay. So
Sounds
again,
like
I
you
only made it through half of the first one because I
because it's
can't
too
sit
long.
still. But it was very visually impressive. I did enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I know there's a lot of people like similar to this conversation we've been having today who think that casting Timothy Chalamet to play this character is kind of glorifying the effeminate male, like the new male. Is
Yeah,
one word
I
I've
mean,
heard for it.
Paul is supposed to be pretty young, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be a teenage boy, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think what I liked about Dune Part One was that I think it better got sort of the spiritual wilderness desert environment a lot better than some of the other adaptations.
Yeah, I really like the costume design in this as well. It's kind of got that
Yes.
functional sci-fi look, but also looks stylish and cool. Like I'm really just hyped to see these characters on screen for for 2.5 hours again.
Right.
But again, like like this is not a character. This isn't like a Princess Leia that teenage boys are going to put on their wall and fall in love with. Like
Oh,
she's a
definitely
kind of
not.
girl next
She's
door.
if even that, like she seems kind of like your cousin. She's not even like aspirational girl next door. She's very just like actual girl next door.
I know what you mean.
So yeah,
Yeah, in a story sense, I get it. Like she's not supposed to be like the hot princess that he falls in love with. She's like a dirty sand willing person.
yeah, but
like
in my mind, she was always kind of she, kind of like an Orientalist beauty. You know, all of those old odalisque paintings. Like I imagined that for her, sort of um, other and very different, but beautiful also. Um,
yeah, again, she's all covered up because she's a Fremen. She lives in the
yeah,
desert. So it's like for a story, from a story perspective, you can defend
I
it,
guess
but
it
then
makes sense. Yeah,
it's definitely a choice. Like they've gone for a choice there.
because I think you could have also put a different woman with a different facial structure in that role, and it would have even same costume. It would have been different.
Yeah,
Let's yeah.
I do not even know what this is. It's called The Marvels. Is this the one where they're all women? I
Why
keep getting these
why was
recommendations
her
again.
hair not floating around in space? Doesn't it
Uh,
like stand out whenever you're in zero gravity?
was that in this shot? I wasn't paying attention,
I think
but
so.
I think the
I don't know.
answer
That
is that
would bother me.
they filmed the face in a
Filmed it on
studio and then
Earth.
they put it on a
Yeah,
CGI body.
obviously. But so you would get away from that by having her either have very short hair or having it tied back.
Good
Hmm.
point. I don't
Hmm.
know if that was a gaffe or an intentional choice, but okay, we've got
I
some
don't
characters here
know.
on screen. Yeah, I mean it's the classic Marvel stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, we've got these
So
kind of armored women who are all completely covered up without any skin showing, and they kind of it's tight fitting, so it's kind of sexy, but
it's like mom at the park wearing yoga pants sexy though. That's not like unusually sexy. That's grocery store sexy.
I know what you mean.
Well, and they're not even particularly well fitted suits, I don't think.
Some of them aren't. Yeah, I mean that one was just kind of a jacket she was wearing.
It was very like intro to cosplay.
You know, I something that struck me when I was watching Deep Space Nine again recently. I don't know if it's a show you've watched, but there's the character in Deep Space Nine called Major Kira, and she has she's like she's a pretty attractive woman. She's kind of petite and skinny. She's got short hair like a tomboy. She's a tomboy character, and she starts off like in this kind of, but by the end she's in like a quite tight fitting jumpsuit, and she's really quite she's quite cute. And then going back to see what she looked like in season 1, her outfit is so frumpy, her hair is so unattractive, like they didn't even bother to make her look hot. And then like the longer she stayed on the show, you like slowly like dropped into her getting hotter without even really noticing it. You don't even notice until you go back to season 1. But that's what that reminds me of anyway.
So was she particularly like fan beloved, or
I
was
don't know.
this just like
Deep Space Nine's like a 90s show, so I really wasn't around. I wasn't watching
my
it when it was
dad
popular.
watched it, but I
Yeah.
wasn't watching it with any kind of attentive eye.
That's kind of what, anyway, that's what this lady's jacket reminds me of, is like
Yeah,
what Kira used to wear.
jacket. It's nothing I wouldn't wear though.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
the thing. That's kind of what we're talking about. Is like these women are they look more attainable
Very
now.
attainable. Yeah, but
Like you
that's not
could
necessarily a good thing.
exactly. It's like I could wear this
Yeah.
outfit. I'd probably look as hot as Brie Larson in this. Is that complimenting
Yeah.
myself too much? Like I think I could just
Yeah.
cosplay this and I would look like her.
And I'm assuming that's part of the point, but I don't know that that makes me very interested in it, or that.
Napoleon. There we go. He's back.
Oh, hey. So what is his depiction?
There's not even a
He's
trailer for
not
this one.
bald.
It's Joaquin Phoenix playing Napoleon.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll actually watch that. I like that actor. I like Ridley Scott as a director, or at least I used to. I don't know if he's still making anything good. Hunger Games is got some interesting character design. So let's have a quick look at this. Oh, Tyrion.
There
It's
you
got
go.
Peter Dinklage in it.
I like him generally.
I kind of want to get a better look at her now.
Very cottage core. Here we go.
Yeah, she's quite like a goth cottage core, and then you've got like peasant core over here.
Yeah. We just need dark academia. Where are we going?
I mean, she's cute. They didn't like cast an ugly actress as the main character, so I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah, he's kind of weird looking.
Yeah. He is a bit weird
That's
looking,
that's
isn't
kind of nice though. I like when people have interesting faces.
he? Yeah, it's been a kind of theme of Wamen now whenever we talk about male attractiveness. Like, something I've just noticed about myself is just I'm attracted to ugly men, and I'm just like making peace with that now.
I'm attracted to interesting men. I'll give myself credit for that. But
We've got any more characters here. I don't want to do too many of these. We'll get out soon. But yeah, I just remember from the original trilogy of Hunger Game films, there was some really extravagant like special effects and costume design. Maybe this is a bit more pared back. They haven't gone for that, or maybe I just missed it. I don't really care, to be honest.
it's interesting. I was watching an old Shakespeare production on film, and I think people now are just a lot more interested in costume being period accurate. Whereas then I think it was just, oh, hey, this is in the past, so here's some generally past looking things.
I think it really depends on the film, like on the production, because you get films where they do pay attention to being period accurate, and I think an example I remember recently was Emma, the recent adaptation of Emma a couple years ago. That like, they had period accurate outfits, but they was very stylized, like very colorful pastel colors everywhere.
Well, and they never do Regency with Regency hair, which is always funny because Regency hair is ridiculous.
And something about that film that I thought was interesting is that they had house staff in every scene where a house staff would actually be there. They just had them standing in the background, being completely ignored by the characters
Can you
in a way that
imagine
felt quite
living your life
authentic.
just observed by people that you don't actually like talk to very often? That would be so weird.
Yeah, like they kind of just just ignoring them.
Yeah.
Not even really. I guess that's why they made that Downton Abbey. Have you ever seen that show? Like they
Yeah.
have they
I love
have the
Downton Abbey,
staff
yeah.
and they have the characters, and the staff are completely aware of everything that's going on because they listen to everything, but they just pretend that they're not paying attention.
Wow, it's got to be such a weird way to live.
This
This is very Disney face.
is a Disney. This is like the latest Disney film, I think.
Yep.
Well, I should say the latest Disney princess. Is that right?
Which one is she? Wish? What is this one?
Yeah, it's called Wish. It's like an Arabian Nights thing, which I kind of
Okay.
I dig it. Like I like those.
Yeah.
I like those
I think
stories.
it's supposed to be set in Spain,
Okay.
which that doesn't look like. So in my mind, Spanish costume is very heavy on like the black lace and the big, like very rich fabrics. This looks like the set of Tangled, but with a different character. But I don't know. I mean, it looks fine. She's visually appealing.
Are you sure are you sure it's in Spain? Because I don't think that's right.
I
It
heard
is
it was
Spain,
in
okay. My husband
Spain
thinks you're
because
right.
people were upset that she was wearing. She's clearly like sub-Saharan African. I
There's a
think
bit of
was
that,
the
yeah.
drama. I mean, she looks nice enough.
Yeah, they haven't made it. Like they haven't. It looks like they haven't gone out of their way to make her look intentionally ugly. So that was all I was
Right,
really looking
right.
out for. You know, she's got
And
that
I
kind
kind
of.
of like this 2D, 3D look that they have going on.
Yeah,
It's
no,
less
I like it.
rounded looking than like Frozen.
Yeah,
Um,
I really wish that they returned to 2D animation, which is my my kind
yeah,
of
I think it's
personal
just so
taste.
expensive.
But
Yeah, I love
this
it.
is a good mid step between two, just like what you
Yeah.
said. Yeah,
Yeah, no, this is really interesting. I like the art.
yeah.
I hate animal sidekicks. I hate them.
That's too bad because they're in every single film.
I know, unless it's like Mushu from Mulan, I thought was cool, and Sebastian I thought was cool, but I really hated Olaf. Like, I think he ruined the movie. And
You're
I
right,
get that it's marketing.
but what about Sven, the reindeer?
You know, he doesn't talk, so it's less jarring.
I know what you
guess.
mean. Yeah, talking sidekicks. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it. You gotta
very
get those like jokes in somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, and I mean it's for kids. It's not for millennial
Abu,
women.
was that the name of the? That was like a squeaky.
The monkey.
The monkey from Aladdin made little squeaky noises, but he didn't talk. I quite liked him.
Yeah,
Got a lot of attitude for a
the
little guy.
monkey sidekick kind of makes sense. Like he acted like a monkey. He didn't act like a
Yeah,
person. I don't know.
like a
That
'90s
goat
comedian.
Yeah, that goat looks like it's acting like a person.
All right.
Baby.
Well, I think we'll end on
Anyway,
that.
sorry. Okay,
That Disney princess.
it looks
Probably
all
spent
right.
longer than that, and I intended to. But thanks for joining me on that. I enjoyed that little
Yeah.
journey. I do enjoy watching trailers for upcoming movies as well, just in general. And I may bring you back on the show to talk more about having kids because you said you had 5 kids.
I have 5, 7. He'll be 7 very soon. 7 and under.
Under 7. Amazing.
Under 7. Yeah.
You know,
And
I got in
homeschool.
touch. Did you see the news stories about Malcolm and Simone Collins? The what do they call it? The super breeders who are breeding to save
yeah.
mankind. So
Yes.
I got in touch with them, and they were on paper. I maybe I shouldn't be saying this. They are on paper okay with coming on the show. So I'm hoping to have an episode of Wamen Hour with Simone Collins coming up, and I was going to try and get Mrs. Radlib, mother of 8 children, to
Oh my
and
gosh,
wife
really?
of Mr. Radlib, on to talk a bit a little bit about that. But I think 5 kids may well qualify you to be on that stream. So maybe I'll bring you back for that if you if
Oh,
you're
fantastic. Yeah. I feel like we're probably about as opposite on like why we have a large family as it's
Yes,
possible to get.
yes.
It might be an interesting
Well, that's what I want.
talk.
Yeah, that's part of the things I want to talk about. Are you going to have more children?
Well, it's possible. So we're very Catholic. and I love my husband very
Okay.
much.
So you're letting God plan for you.
Yeah, basically. And you can do some things to kind of space things out or whatever. And we're certainly open to it. But once you hit 5, then you start getting into full size van territory. And I don't
Not
know if
many.
you've priced full size vans recently, but they're about $60,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
The
live in
modern world isn't really.
California.
The modern world isn't really built for large families, is it?
No, it's not.
Well, that's something we'll talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I had a really good time. And please, everyone
Sure.
watching, go check out Juniper's paintings. I didn't show nearly enough of them here on the stream. You're very modest, Juniper, but your paintings are very beautiful. And I'm sure that there's going to be someone in the audience who wants to commission something from you or buy one of your works because they're amazing.
Well,
So
thank you.
links to that in the description. And until next time, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks Juniper for joining me.
Well, thank you very much.